Good evening, everyone, and I'll call this meeting to order. Public meeting agenda for March the 15th. If I can have councillors Bagu and Bruno move the agenda. Is there any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Any disclosures of interest? Seeing none. Tonight we have a public meeting. Oops. And it's the stop, up, and close of Borden Avenue. The recommendations that Chief Administrative Office Report 2022-55 be received, and that the Economic Development Officer be directed to bring forward a stop, up, and close bylaw for the property indicated on Appendix A to Chief Administrative Office Report 2022-55 to the April 12th, 2022 Council meeting for Council's consideration. If I can have Councillors Bodner and Wells put that on the floor. We will have Mr. Schultz give us a presentation. We have one delegation, and then I'll go to Council after that. And just remember, Council, the discussion tonight is with regards to closing up of the road. There will be further public meetings as we move forward with this, if that's Council's wish when it does come forward to our April Council meeting. So I just want to keep everybody on track with that. Mr. Schultz, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Steele, and happy birthday, and good evening to Council and anyone watching. I will share my screen and will be quite brief with everyone today. If that's okay. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So as you mentioned, this is a public meeting regarding the stopping up and closing of a portion of Borden Avenue that has been proposed. The legal description is part of the road allowance between lots 15 and 16 on Plan 10 and lots 23 and 24 on Plan 33 between Steele Street and Knoll Street. The purpose of this meeting is to seek comments on the proposed stopping up and closing of the road allowance, and to provide a brief timeline of next steps should Council wish to move forward with this. For the location, as I mentioned, it is located in between Knoll Street and Steele Street, and it's known as the Borden Road Allowance, Borden Avenue Road Allowance, that is. This arose over some reviews that have been taking place across the city as part of a greater project that the Economic Development Office has been taking on. And this road allowance came up because there were some, I guess, minor issues that were looking to be addressed through this in the future, hopefully. As you can see, there is a improved, I guess, gravel portion that has been put in the road allowance here, and is currently used by the three properties to the two properties to the north and the one to the south. To date, the city has received comments from Wendy and Ken Bush from 848 Steele Street, as well as Merle Nielsen, as well as Ken and Wendy Bush from 860 Steele Street. The correspondence from the above people have been circulated to Council through the delegation package, and I believe Wendy Bush is also here to speak to this tonight. The main concern that the respondents have mentioned is with regard to the use of the road allowance and past decisions of Council that basically said that the road allowance would be remaining as is. So I will let Wendy speak to that when her delegation time is up. The steps moving forward, should Council wish to do so. Obviously, the public meeting is today. Notice was put in the Niagara This Week newspaper for 4 consecutive weeks. And that is in accordance with Section 34 of the Municipal Acts for the stopping up and closing of a highway. And then should Council wish to move forward, a recommendation report will be presented to Council at a future date for their consideration. Staff are hoping for April 12th at this time. And then obviously, as if Council approves to move forward with that, a bylaw will be passed at the same time, recommended on April 12th. that is essentially all I have. If any questions arise from this public meeting from anyone watching at home, you are welcome to comment and provide your input to Bram Cotton, our Economic Development Officer, at the number on the screen, or our acting city clerk, Nicole Rubley. At this time, I will pass the floor back to you, Mayor Steele, to move forward with the delegations and any questions of council.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. So at this time, we have Ken and Wendy Bush. I believe Wendy will be speaking. Yeah, Charlotte Spring. There we are. Good evening, Wendy. How are you?
Good evening. We're well. Can you see us?
No, but we can hear you.
But you can hear us. Okay. Well, that'll have to do, I guess.
That's
so
fine.
Actually, Ken does have something to say, so I'll let him kind of take it from here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Ken Bush. I'm here with my wife, Wendy. We live at 848 Steele Street, which is the property on the south side of the road allowance that is being discussed here this evening. I'm also joined by my mother, Merle Nielsen, who lives at 860 Steele Street, which is the property on the north side of the road allowance. I am under the assumption that each member of council has a copy of the map and the brief history of the property we've provided, so I won't go into that too much, other than to say that my family has maintained and improved the property for around 60 years. That being said, when we received the letter from the city, we've just been beside ourselves with the thought of a house being built on this relatively small property between us. We have always assumed that the large piece of property fronting Knoll Street would be sold and built on. Makes sense to us. If you drive by the Steele Street access to the road allowance, it can be very deceiving from Steele Street. You'll see a barricade. That barricade is not the property line. The property line is actually approximately 50 feet closer to Steele Street. We would be more than happy to meet with anyone that would like an on-site visit to see the actual layout of the properties. We would obviously like to see nothing happen to the Steele Street access, and we could just go on maintaining the property for years to come. If council does indeed choose to sell the property, we would be requesting allowances for driveway access on the north side of the property at 848 Steele Street and the south side of the property at 860 Steele Street. We'd also request that if council chooses to sell the road allowance, that we would have first opportunity to purchase. Just one final thing, if you're to look at the map that I provided, you'll see that 848 and 860 Steele Street own 5 foot 6 inches into the roadway, and we are wondering how council would propose to handle this situation. Pretty much thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to answering any questions that council may have tonight or in the future. Thank you. Great.
Thanks, Ken and Wendy. We appreciate that. So
Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to ask council if they have any questions to the delegate. I see Councillor Danch and Bruno's hands are up. Are these questions for the delegate?
Not mine, Mr. Mayor. I've had discussions with him. It was to staff.
Yep, okay. So seeing no questions to the delegate at this time, great. Thank you, Ken and Wendy. And we're going to go to questions to staff. I've got Councillor Bruno, then Councillor Danch. Councillor Bruno?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the Bushes and Merles for their excellent presentation and hand-in. The question I had going forward, I understand tonight is just about stopping up and surplusing, but I wanted to, but on the screen, it talked about next steps in April 12th, and I just want to be clear for those listening in. So April 12th would be a up or down vote about surplus bylaw stopping up. And in the interim, would the Bushes be talking to planning and Mr. Cotton? Or does that happen after April 12th? And should that bylaw pass? And then there could still be further discussions until what, a recommendation comes forward? Because a recommendation other than stop up and close would be the only thing for April 12th. Through you to David.
Yeah, Mr. Schultz?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno. I think I got the gist of your question, and the April 12th meeting, which Economic Development staff have proposed to bring forward the recommendation report, will just be for the stopping up and closing of the highway. It won't provide any recommendations for the next steps after that. I would assume that economic development staff and the Bushes, for example, would be speaking to discuss the next steps following that meeting, should council wish to approve it.
Councillor Bruno?
Great, so on the 12th, there would the neighbors of the Bushes be still, they wouldn't be speaking to the negotiations about the disposition of the land or us, or whether that price is from $1 to X amount of dollars. That would come after that, and in the meantime, they would be involved.
Mr. Schultz?
Through you, that's correct. After the stopping up and closing is when, for example, reference plans would be put together and kind of the options would be presented following that decision. So there would be ample opportunity for discussion with economic development staff and the Bushes.
And lastly, so we probably wouldn't be back into that kind of debate, meeting, final decision till into May or later?
Mr. Schultz?
Through you, I think that's fair to say. I'm not sure what the timeline will be with economic development, but I think that's probably accurate.
Thank you, that's all for now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Danch?
And I've noted a couple things here because Gary and I both have spoke with the Bushes and whatnot, and some of the neighbors on Knoll as well. I guess because this is going to come back later, the sidewalk ownership comes out. The size of the lot would be extremely narrow. There are some drainage issues. And the fact that the city's looked after and maintained it for maybe what the Bushes are telling me about the last 10 years, up until then, those people looked after the property. But so Gary and I have spoke, and we spoke with the Bushes. I realize this will come back with more discussion, and I just want to keep abreast of what's going on. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Schultz, anything to add?
No, I don't have anything further, Mr. Mayor. There aren't any statements that are required under the Municipal Act as there are with the Planning Act, so I can pass it back to you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Appreciate it. And since there's no further questions, we do have a recommendation on the floor. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? That's carried. There are no procedural motions this evening or information items. So at this time, I will adjourn this portion of the meeting. Thank you, Council, and have a good evening.